Hallelujah. Welcome, Teacher Andrew. We're happy to have you with us. Kindly, the microphone is yours. And also welcome, blessed brethren. Those who are joining us now, welcome Senior Pastor Mary Magdalene, our blessed mom from Houston, Texas, Sister Charlie from Philadelphia, Mama Senior Pastor Bawen, welcome. And the rest, I know we greeted each other. Thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you with us. Without any further ado, karibu sana mwalimu.
And thank you very much for having me. I'm having a bit of a different setup today, so you can let me know if I'm audible, if the volume is too low, if there's any changes that I need to make, so that our session is completely smooth. So how is my audio? Is it too low?
We can hear you.
Okay. So I hope it's the same for everybody.
Can everyone hear?
Yes, I can. Amen.
It's fine, thanks.
Okay. So thank you very much for having me. I know we've not had our sessions for, I think, the past 2 weeks, if I'm not wrong. But I would like us to just pick up right from where we left last time. Not the question and answer, but from the topics we were covering concerning vocal range. From the topics we were covering concerning vocal range. So last time we did take your questions, and I hope most of you got assistance. I did not see if anybody else posted any questions that they had extra from the ones that from the time that we had on the group. I didn't see any more questions, so I think everybody was pretty much sorted. And now I would like us to continue on the matter of vocal range.
Excuse me, Teacher Andrew, I see a question there on the chat. Maybe you can answer that before you continue.
Okay. I'm not able to see the question. I think because the second device I logged in with it a bit later. So maybe you can just unmute and ask.
Okay, she's writing, asking, this is from Mom Mary Magdalene, Senior Pastor in Houston. I truly want to understand worship and all its intricacies in this ministry so as to bring a holy worship to the Lord. I don't know if that's what you mean. If you're able to talk, maybe you can ask Blessed Mom Mary.
Praise the Lord. Actually, it wasn't meant to be a question. I was just greeting you guys and also regretting that I missed one of the classes, but I know we didn't hold for a little while, but I'm really, really, really so interested in understanding worship, especially, as I disciple some altars in Nigeria. And I know my home country, how the worship over there, being a former choir member, that it hadn't been what was expected. So I'm really trying to learn so I can also pass along to Nigeria. Because I could see when they were doing their old songs or how they do worship. Trust me, it was as if people were flooding the church. But when I started reminding them or showing them what is going on in Kenya, you know, the entertainment has gone out, and we need to understand. Thank you so much. So I don't take up your time. God bless you. I'm listening.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much, Senior Pastor Mary Magdalene. Yes, so in our inaugural sessions, right before we got into the vocal training, we did have an introductory topic concerning worship, and it was the person who led us through it was Senior Bishop Muhando, and we will be having another follow-up session concerning the same soon. So from then, we did now separate the training sessions that are ongoing. We'll be having sessions where we're covering things like vocal training, which is what we're having today. And then there are sessions when now we'll get down to worship, where we'll be joined with Bishop Muhando, who is the international coordinator for worship at the moment. So he is going to be the one to guide us through those, through such topics. And then also we have a separate session also that's going on for keyboardists and all that, the instrumentalists. So as the Lord is helping us, we are trying to cover as much with the time that we have. But what you've mentioned is really, really important, because sometimes we may forget the reason why we get into things like vocal training and all that for us to improve our worship unto the Lord. And I'll just share briefly something that can help us to be anchored, to have somewhere to hold on to, even as we practice. Because, you know, sometimes vocal training is not really what I would call our food. Vocal training is not what sustains us, you see. It's just something that we use as a means. So, like all physical things, vocal training is learned by practice. So there's nobody who's born with some special gift or they're just born knowing how to sing or how to do something in a very special way. There's nobody who's born that way. It's just that the practice time they've put in and the guidance they've had in order to have an efficient practice routine and yield results from that. So that's basically what's going on, the difference between somebody whose voice has really developed and somebody whose voice is still developing. It's just a matter of practice. It's nothing too special. But you will agree with me that there are a lot of singers in the world and even in the church, people who sing gospel, but you don't listen to all of them because maybe they don't all appeal to you. That's probably because there are such other aspects that have to come in aside from just training your voice that will make what you're doing effective. So things like the message that is in the song. How are you connected to that message? How well can you deliver that message? There are some people who have learned how to do that better than others. And it's a very important aspect to have as a foundation for your training. Yet, at the same time, you will agree with me that we listen to songs that touch our heart, but it's not necessarily that those people have submitted really to the types of teachings that we are getting. It's just because, as the Messiah said, the words that he gave us are spirit. So when they're spoken, whether they're spoken by who, they are the truth. So for you, you understand that song and it moves your heart because you're living those things, as we've been taught in this ministry. But for somebody who just sang it maybe because they like the melody, or maybe even the person who made the song, because they don't live it, it probably doesn't really move them as much. You see that? So it's very important to be able to see the difference in between those, in between singing and actual worship. Singing can be learned by repetition. Anybody can do it. In fact, there's some people in the world who have sung gospel songs once, twice, 3 times that have been powerful, and then they went back to what they were doing. So that just gives us an example of the difference between singing and music, which stirs up emotions, and actual worship. Worship has nothing at all to do with, It has nothing at all to do with physical things. Worship is a spiritual thing. In fact, worship is just a matter of learning how to obey the Lord and submitting to the Lord. That's really what I would say worship is about. Because once you have that down, then all these other things, the Lord just lays them out for you. Once you have your obedience and you've been training yourself to listen to the word of the Lord and to obey and to remain in touch with the Lord on a daily basis, then it really helps you to have a very strong foundation to everything really that you do. As the word says, that physical training is of some use, but it's in the book of, I think, 1st or 2nd Timothy, but physical training is of some use, but spiritual and godliness, training yourself to be godly, is of use in everything. So no matter what you're doing, whether it be vocal training or you've picked up an instrument or what it is, evangelism, all the duties of your ministry, the Lord will help you once we train ourselves to worship him through obedience. Because in heaven, everybody is a worshiper. And we worship by submitting to the Lord, right? So this aspect that we're covering today is just to help us, a means to pass that message. Because if you think about it, for you, us human beings, our physical representation, we are like doors through which somebody is supposed to find the Lord. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have trained your voice and you can sing any song, let's say, then somebody will be moved to find out more. What is the bedrock of this person's deep emotional communication with music? When they pick up music, then the way they pass it on, it just moves you and you want to know what is inside this person. And then you open the door. A lot of times the case is you find emptiness. The day you try to encounter those people and try to speak with them and find out what exactly goes on inside this person for them to be able to communicate that much emotion, you find emptiness. So you find that these things are being learned by repetition. They're actually things that are being taught in school, how to use music to pass a certain emotion. Those are things that can be learned. But to actually have that depth enough to have God defend you and to help people with real problems, then worship has to be in place. That is what they need to find at the back of that door. When they open that door, they need to be able to see the Lord once they open it. So that's what I can say as a bedrock of everything that we do concerning worship. It's just a matter of training yourself to obey the Lord and learning exactly what he wants, which is something that we have to do afresh every morning. Every day we have to do it afresh. So as we keep training ourselves to do that, then you find out that you have to also present an image that will attract people to want to know the Lord. Because we are in this body, still, we have not yet transitioned. So we use these bodies to serve the Lord. So everything physical that the Lord provides for us, we need to present it as a door for people to access the Lord. So that's why it's very important to be diligent even about small things like vocal training, because you all know sometimes by now, you already know that you can be at church and let's say you are a worship leader and your duty is mostly leading the songs at church, and you, let's say, have not really trained your voice or anything. But that matter, the fact that you are singing at church, that is a physical thing. So if you do not do that well, then the people who are listening to you won't respond well to it also. So if you don't do it well, it just means that you haven't taken enough time to train your body to serve using your body in a way that's honorable to the Lord. Because also that's complacency. You see that? It's a form of complacency when you don't use your body to serve the Lord perfectly as well. So it's very important that we structure ourselves in a way that we have our worship lifestyle in place, and then we also make sure that we're able to reach out to the world by presenting something that will cause them to inquire more, to feel like I can get help here. And when they come and check, then they really do find help. You see, our mistake sometimes is that we can get into this, I don't know if it's a cycle, where you put in so much effort on presenting that there is help, but inside you have ignored. So you find that the presence of the Lord has dwindled within. So now when somebody actually comes to you to check whether they can really, really find help, then it turns out that there's nothing actually they can really get from there because you didn't spend time nourishing the spirit. So the house from outside looked excellent and beautiful, but then you open it and get inside, you find it's ruined and there's not much in there. So it's very important to make sure that at least inside is stable first. And then now, when we get into vocal training and matters concerning that, in that line, then it moves very smoothly. The Lord helps you, by the way, because even these things, it's the Lord who has given us. It's the Lord who has provided every physical thing for us to make life and ministry for us on the earth easier for us to, He made it easier for us to dwell here. So it's a physical realm, and we must use that physical realm to serve the Lord. So we will have more, I think, more and more sessions concerning that. I know if we have opportunities to have people like Senior Bishop Mohando and the senior leaders in this ministry, they'll be able to explain it in a lot more depth. Like the session that we had right before we kicked off with this training was really, really powerful, where the bishop took us through the foundation, where worship really began, the duty of the worshipers, you know. And just to say a little bit, we found out that actually the first worshipers like physically were the Levites. And their duty was really to carry the things of the tent, carry the different, like some of them were assigned to carry the poles, some of them were assigned to carry the fabrics, some of them, they had different duties. So now you find that all their duties revolved around keeping the house in order. So when everybody else, actually another important point was like when everybody else would go back to their normal lives after they've come in and the service, they've had served the service, the church people have presented themselves before the Lord and what they sought the Lord, what is our nowadays Sunday service or whichever day service, then they go back for the rest of the general group, they go back to their lives, right? But for the Levites, they usually used to remain behind inside in the house of the Lord so that they can keep everything in order and make sure everything is running smoothly. They were there the entire time. So it gave us a lot of insight concerning how we need to approach our service in the house of the Lord. The fact that when something goes wrong in the house of the Lord, we are really the first ones to be looked at. The worshipers, the ones who are in charge of those things, because they're the ones who are given to the priests to assist them in running the matters of the house. So at that time, it was carrying the poles and what these duties here and there, preparing the sacrifices. But now at this time, then you find that it is actually the worshipers who are doing this duty. So they're the ones who have been given to the priests to help them to run whether it's the house of the Lord, which is really the church, the place where you fellowship at. So it's very important to understand that as well, so that we don't leave the house of the Lord desolate. A lot of times we all go back to our lives and we forget that that house of the Lord is where we get our nourishment from. So it's very important also to be very engaged with whatever is going on inside the house of the Lord, so that you don't fall back in any way. We always, of course, there's nothing we can give the Lord that he has not given us first. But we do have that duty to offer him our bodies as we have been commanded. So it's very important to also always keep that in mind, to make sure that after you have woken up in the morning, you have prayed, you have spent time before the Lord and read your word. And these days we have such a mighty privilege of being able to access the teachings of the mightiest prophets direct. So things have become so easy to put your spiritual life in balance. It's just a matter of, I would say, those three pillars are so important: to listen to the mightiest prophets' teachings, to pray, and to read your word, things like those. Once you are nourished like that, then now it's a matter of reaching out to others. And the most perfect evangelism, I recall, is the one that happens when you're alone, one, and then also what you do, how you live your life, how you execute your lifestyle. Those two are the pillars of evangelism before you even open your mouth to preach to anybody. The way you execute your lifestyle personally, those are the things that evangelize to people the most before you even start giving them the gospel or sharing what. I'm sure you all have friends, or you've met people who, when they open their mouths to pray, they know all the scriptures. But when you try to share with them what's going on at the moment, then it's like there's a disconnect. They really don't, they're not able to just quickly realize, So, sorry. It's very important that we understand that it shouldn't just be a rote. It shouldn't just be a repetition. These physical things that we always do, these physical things that we always repeat and repeat and repeat in order to learn, to train ourselves to physically do them. The service of the Lord, the spiritual service of the Lord, should never be a rote. Even though you have a sort of a routine format of praying and reading your word and listening to teachings, it shouldn't be like you're just moving through the motions. It shouldn't just be like, okay, now I do this, then you mechanically move on to this, then you mechanically move on to this. Maybe you said that you'll do this for 15 minutes, you'll do this for 15 minutes, and then you'll do this for 20 minutes. It should never be that way. Spiritual things, when you now talk about worship, you have to have your heart in it. And the Lord, he can't be tricked. He can't be tricked. So if your heart is not there, you can't really lie about it or cover it up. In fact, because he's actually the one who helps us to pray. He's the one who opens up the word for us. Even when you listen to the mightiest prophets, it is only him who can reveal and open your hearts, your spiritual ears, and your spiritual eyes for you to be able to understand what's going on. So you have to really invest your heart in these spiritual matters, looking to yourself, figuring out what issues do you usually have when you're dealing with your spiritual life. What problems are you having? And have you brought them before the Lord? Are you using every day to walk through them or to get rid of them? You see that sometimes it's a matter of just getting rid of something at once. And sometimes it's a matter of waking up day by day and working against your errors. So doing that with your heart is what matters to the Lord. That waking up every day to actually take your service, spiritual service to the Lord further with your heart invested in it. You remember that, I usually have this problem. Today, I want to bring it before the Lord and see. I want to pray about it. And then I want to open the word and see whether the Lord has something there for me to pick and start putting into practice. You see that? And then now, once, let's say you find it there, then now there comes the next step of putting it into practice. You can't just also just read it and be like, wow, I don't know if I can do that. No. Then now it comes the next step of putting it into practice. And then you can also go the extra step, which is nowadays very, very important, by the way. It's like a lifeline of listening to the teachings of the mightiest prophets. That's a lot of times you'll find your answers even just in there, put in a very plain format. You know, sometimes you read the word, but sometimes it doesn't hit you as much as when somebody tells you. So listening to teachings, or even nowadays looking into your notes, just your notes that you've taken when you're following the evening service, or any teaching that you've attended or encountered and written notes about, they probably changed you. You saw something and you're like, wow, I did not know that. So you pick it up and you go back to it, because you know we're human beings. We always forget. That's why the Lord tells us, don't worry about what's coming, but worry about, pick up the troubles of each day afresh, right? So you don't worry too much about the posterity, the future things that are coming. You worry more about at the moment, what can you do to improve immediately? So it's important to keep such things in mind, so that it helps you not to get lost in routines, so that you can at least be effective in the small services that you're doing. You know, even if you're an usher in the church, you need to be effective in all your service. You know, when we were being assigned by the Lord in the Bible, when he sent his servants and he gave them, each one of them, he gave treasure. He assigned each one of them some treasure so that they can go and put it into work. So you can't just take this job of yours and hide it down. You know, what that person did. He took his treasure and he hid it under the ground. So that's the practical explanation of that. Is, let's say you become an usher, or you become a worshiper, in more directly, more into context of what we're covering. You become a worshiper, but from day one, and let's say 3 years, 5 years down the line, you are still at the same place where you are when you started. No improvements in your service. There's not much significant changes. You know, that is really a reflection of taking your gift that the Lord gave you and burying it in the ground. So the wise people, what they do, they put it into work. Everybody has a gift. I mean, the gift is this: to be able to put in that effort, to have your heart deposited in that thing. The gift is not really to have a voice. If the gift was the voice, then you would have woken up, the day you received the Lord, then you would have just woken up like a few hours later and you're able to sing whichever song you wanted to sing. Then that would be like a gift of having a voice. But the gift that he gives you is the burden to serve the Lord in that manner, which is something he decided for us even a long time before even he formed us, before the beginning of the earth. He decided how we were going to serve the Lord. So he puts that burden in you when he has called you now. So now that burden, everybody has it. That is that treasure that he gives you, that burden to serve the Lord in a particular way. So if you do not use that burden to actually execute your duties, you end up being like that person who was described, who buried his gift in the ground. So you have this burden, but you ignored it. You see that? You have the burden, but you did not take it seriously. So now you end up with nothing by the time the Lord returns. And as you see, that person is actually shut out. So you see, your conscience will rebuke you when you have a duty in the house of the Lord. When you're born again, of course, and you have a duty in the house of the Lord, and you are complacent concerning that duty. So you don't take it as seriously. You never want to do it any better, because the Lord has given us a limitless capacity to grow in the service that he gives us. It's just a matter of, are you willing to take that extra step, to just work a little harder, to do it a bit more perfectly? That's what he's wondering, whether you're willing, so that he can help you. You see that? So it's very, I would say, those are some of the very foundational things to keep in mind, even when you're executing your duties as a worshiper physically, in the house. So these are the spiritual things that I would say I keep in mind before you even get into all the matters concerning your physical duties. Start with the spiritual and the reason why. Your heart has to be invested in them so that you can be effective. Being effective comes only from the Lord, because he bound us all to futility, as you've read. Human beings can't really do much right now. They will do 1,000 things, but all those 1,000 things will just come to futility. I mean, if you take the coronavirus, we human beings had really, 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 really advanced, if you want to use that word, right? So you would think our medicine, our transport systems, our communication systems, talk about the web. I mean, I'm talking to you from Kenya, and you're just getting me like almost in real time. So we had thought that we really, really advanced. But then COVID came and everybody was just put in one level. Like, how do we deal with this now? You see that? So it's very important to understand where effectiveness comes from. It only comes from the Lord. There's no physical thing that somebody can do for them to be effective in everything that they do, whether it's a service to the Lord or whatever it is, even their lives, even your work. Effectiveness is only counts as effectiveness when the Lord has been effective in your work. You see that? So let's say if you're a worshiper and there are songs that you've learned, and let's say you've practiced and your voice, you've been able to sing those songs perfectly. But while you may move the church emotionally, they will soon very quickly forget, by maybe even like the next day or the next week or the next month, they'll have forgotten. But when you have the Lord on your side, then you minister the Lord to them and the Lord goes with them, such that they keep being trained by the Lord. Their hearts now become open to receiving the Lord. You see that opening of their hearts? Now that is a mark of effective service, because you've worshipped and then somebody has been ministered to change their way, change their outlook, their mindset concerning something. And the result of that draws them closer to the Lord and their hearts open up to the Lord. That is effective service. You see that? So now it means that you've really pretty much evangelized somebody successfully, and somebody else has been won for the kingdom of God. So it's very important to understand where effectiveness comes from. It has nothing to do with what physical things that we partake in, but it's more of your relationship with the Lord, the presence of the Lord that you invite into your life, so that in everything that you do, that may be what people find when they interact with you. And when they interact with you, then you can actually share they can actually encounter the Lord from the words that come from your mouth, the way you carry yourself in your day-to-day lifestyle. They'll be able to see that this person is doing it in the right way. This is the truth right here that I've been confronted with. And I think I need to follow this way. It looks absolutely beneficial. You see that? So everyone, whether they're born again or not, they have that eternity from Ecclesiastes chapter 3:11. They have eternity set in their hearts. So they cannot deny when they encounter the truth. That's why it's always important to invest in, I'm talking spiritual investment, to invest spiritually your time, your effort into knowing the Lord and inviting the presence of the Lord into your life, so that you can be effective to win other souls to the Lord. He uses you now to be able to reach out to others. That is the best thing that somebody can do even before they get into training and all this. All this training and what? They just help the situation. But the main thing is the Lord. The Lord is the one who makes the difference. So that's quite a long detour, but that was a very important question, a very important topic that you raised concerning worship. And I'm sure in our upcoming sessions, there will be a few more just ahead of us here concerning some of these things a bit more in a richer way from the leaders also. The Lord reveals things very differently. Well, He reveals different things to different people. So it's very important to also attend those sessions where we are not really just doing vocal training, but also talking about matters concerning worship. It helps us at least to be anchored in the right way so that we are not empty. Hallelujah. So today I had wanted us to talk about vocal range, though I don't know. Right now it's 9:50, so maybe we can just have like a brief session. I know from our vocal range sessions we've covered what your vocal range is, and then we talked about how to know whether you're a soprano, an alto, a bass, a tenor, all that. And then we talked about how to we talked about how to not to expand, but how to discover your entire vocal range and be able to move in between, from the lowest straight to the mids to the top. And then the next thing we needed to talk about as well, we did do that exercise that was going to help you to unlock your entire vocal range. But then I wanted us today to talk about your vocal range in terms of what is important and what is not. So I was going to present it to you that it's not really important how high or how low you can sing, but how well you coordinate your voice, whichever area of the voice it is. So it's not really always about hitting the high notes and remaining there, because I tell you, if you're always singing high, it will also get boring, because it's the same flavor all the time. So you have to really be dynamic in the way you use your voice. You don't just always go for the high notes. You have to dilute things so that when you bring in that high note, it's such a breath of fresh air. So some of those things are very important to keep in mind when you're training your voice, knowing exactly how to move around your entire vocal range. So I'm seeing we may not really get much into that today, but maybe we can use the time we have left to talk about the exercises that we were supposed to be doing. How many have been able to at least improve? How many have improved in doing those exercises? We had the exercise, we are doing the scale.